This week on R&B Reviews, Christian Bale dons the Batsuit for the third and maybe final time in The Dark Knight Rises. First, you guys know what to do. Go ahead and leave your comments or your thoughts about it.
It's a great movie because it goes back and forth with the family.
Hello, Rob here, and I finally got around to seeing The Dark Knight Rises, which is supposedly the final chapter in Christopher Nolan's Batman movie series. But before I begin my review, I'd like to have a 10-second moment of silence of the families and as well as the victims of the Colorado movie theater shooting. Thank you very much. Well, The Dark Knight Rises features a slightly graying Bruce Wayne who is sort of leading a reclusive life after several years after the events of the previous Batman movie, The Dark Knight. And he finally snaps out of it and he becomes Batman again, and he tries to go up against Bane, a hulking brute of a character, and he teams up as well as goes up against Catwoman, played by Anne Hathaway. Now, while I did not think this movie was quite as good as the previous two Batman movies, it still moved very well at nearly 3 hours, and I was never bored. I was really interested in the story, and like the other two major superhero movies from the summer, The Avengers and The Amazing Spider-Man, there's a lot going on, and there's some moments in this movie that doesn't seem to develop. Like, I think Batman is supposed to fall for Catwoman, and we really don't see that too much because of the other plots that happen in the movie involving Bane, as well as Wayne's personal problems. And what Nolan does with his Batman movies is they seem to have a realistic look as well as current situations that we can probably relate to. Unlike the Burton Schumacher Batman movies as well as the Adam West TV show, those movies and TV show, they seem to take place in a fictional comic world, but here it seems like it could take place in this real world. And in this movie, Bane is kind of portrayed like a terrorist, and there are some scenes in the movie that might make some audience members uncomfortable, including one that appears in the movie trailer involving a football stadium. The movie looked really good as well, and there was some dry humor. And the last third of the movie I thought had really entertaining action that kept me on the edge of my seat, and there were some situations that reminded me of the French Revolution as well. The cast was pretty good, especially Anne Hathaway as the con artist Catwoman, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays a police officer who supports and believes in Batman. Early on, he kind of had a sort of annoying New York-like accent, but thankfully he dropped it later, and Gordon-Levitt I thought was pretty good here too. But the problems I had with The Dark Knight Rising, including the fact that I kind of had a hard time, I don't know if this was me, but I kind of had a hard time understanding some of the actors. Sometimes I had a hard time understanding Bane, played by Tom Hardy. I think one of his voice kind of reminded me, oddly enough, of the Freddy Krueger from the recent Nightmare on Elm Street remake, because I thought in that movie, his voice was a little overproduced, and I kind of thought the same thing here. When I mean overproduced, I mean like it was overdone during the sound mixing stage of the picture. Sometimes I had a hard time understanding him, and sometimes it felt like a little bit too much. And Batman, I never cared for the gruff voice that Christian Bale does in his Batman series. That I never liked that. And sometimes I could not understand Commissioner Gordon either. There's a scene where he's in the hospital, and I had a hard time understanding him. And it's not just that scene; it's throughout the movie too. I also really didn't find Bane to be an interesting character as some of the other Batman villains. I mean, we do get a little bit of a backstory, but to me, well, one positive thing I will say about Bane is that his performance is not quite as over the top. He does have a quiet voice, and he doesn't show off what he can do too much unless he really has to. But the character to me just wasn't very interesting. But despite that, I did find Batman Dark Knight Rising to be a very good ending in the trilogy, and I give it a see it in theaters rating. And if you have seen The Dark Knight Rising, please go ahead and tell me what you thought of the movie, and you can look at our other reviews on the channel by going to the main page. Thank you very much for watching.